I am very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Jennifer Bremer. Dr. Bremer is a policy analyst, researcher, and economist with over 40 years of experience in governance, reform, and private enterprise development in the United States and more than 30 other countries. She is currently a co-chair of the League of Women Voters Action Team, working to introduce a citizen-led ballot initiative to North Carolina, and a board member of the League of Women Voters of ODC, which is Orange, Durham, Chatham County. Since moving to North Carolina in 2016, Dr. Bremer has focused primarily on redistricting reform and increasing voter engagement. She joined the League of Women Voters in early 2017 and led the formation of the League's redistricting action team, as well as serving a term on the League's state board. She led a League study team examining alternative approaches to redistricting reform under consideration in states like North Carolina that do not have a citizen-initiated referendum. This effort led to the formulation of the North Carolina League's 5 principles for a reasonable redistricting commission. Dr. Bremer has a master's and PhD in public policy from the Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, a master's from Stanford University in development and economics, and a bachelor cum laude from Barnard College. So today, Dr. Bremer will be speaking about the Citizen Initiative and the League of Women Voters of North Carolina's position statement on the Citizen Initiative that was unanimously adopted at the 2025 state
thank you very much, and I really appreciate all of you coming out, and I hope we can have a good discussion. But I'll go through some of the basics, and then may probably be better unless something is really not clear to hold the questions until the end, so we can have a good discussion. And then for the next trick, I have to figure out how to.
I'm going to go ahead and move your slides for you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So next slide. Don't want you to say next.
Okay.
Oops. Then I have to do it, I guess. Or I guess I can stand over here. So Citizen Initiative empowers voters to go out and collect signatures to put something directly on the ballot. It's part of a toolkit of direct democracy, which enables the voters themselves to get involved in different phases of the electoral process and the policy process. And I think that is something that has made it of a special interest to a League of Women Voters, around the state. And I'm really glad that after a year of study of Citizen Initiative with representatives from most of the leagues around the state, that it was so strongly supported as to be unanimous. I mean, that's really something that will stick in my mind when they called for all in favor, and if everyone raised their hands, and then is it all opposed? And Jen Rubin said, all opposed, nobody raised their hand. So I think that shows that this is a policy process and a policy tool that has the potential to be of interest to a lot of people. It can be used for a lot of things, not just electoral reform, of course. Actually, how many of you have lived in a state that had Citizen Initiative where you could collect signatures to put something on the ballot?
California.
Yeah, I'm a Californian as well, although I moved out long before I was a voter, but yeah. So not that many, I'm surprised. I mean, I was up in Dare, like a little over a week ago, and there were more people that had come from the Northeast. I'm not sure why that is. Okay, let's see, are we here? It also provides a tool for voters to defend democracy. When there are things that aren't working, or when the government is not responding to voters, Citizen Initiative is an excellent tool, because you can go in and make, you can do a law, you can, depending on how it's set up, you can do a law, you can do a constitutional amendment, you can do both. And it is, in North Carolina, it's available in most cases at the local level, but it does not exist at the state level. And one of the reasons for that is that while the country was doing the progressive era in the early 1900s, the South was doing Jim Crow, which was not really conducive to the concept of broadening voter participation, as you might imagine. So that really didn't happen. But we really need a tool, I think, to sort of level the playing field between the legislators, even though we elect them, to level the playing field between the voters and the electors and the legislators, so that there's more opportunity to move things that have good support but are not moving through the legislature. And this permits the voters to take direct action, not to necessarily rely on the legislature, which is a real plus. So how does it work? Well, the first step, is to come up with a good proposal that can be, that is soundly designed. One of the things about our position is that it provides certain guardrails. It can't be something that undermines democracy and so forth. But it's important to come up with a good proposal, and then people collect signatures, and the systems vary in terms of how many you need. Not only whether what the distribution has to be. In some states, you have to get so many from each of the different regions of the state or whatever, and others it's more open. And then after the signatures are verified, and they can only be registered voters that can sign. After the signatures are verified, we have a challenge of where to put this in our structure, because we don't, in most states, it's the Secretary of State. But our Secretary of State, as many of you know, has a very different set of functions from most of the other Secretaries of State. She's not really involved in managing elections and so forth, and she is involved in election finance. But that is something that we're sort of still have to explore what the options are there. And then if you get enough signatures, then it goes on the ballot. And usually it's a majority, a simple majority. But in some states, it may be more for a constitutional amendment, for example, than for a law. Okay, so next slide, please. So we looked at what states had put forward, what were the initiatives that had come forward from the states in the past election. And as you can see, it's a very wide range of things. Introducing reforms like top 4 primaries, or raising the minimum wage, or creating an independent redistricting commission, which is sort of was one of the reasons I got involved in this issue, is that when I looked at the different states, the commissions that had been created through citizen initiative really performed pretty well. But the ones that had been designed in the last round of redistricting, all of the commissions that were created by legislatures failed to work. And that was very disappointing, because a lot of work went into creating those things. But some of them, there was so much hostility between the different partisans on the commissions that the commission could not even meet, and that they had to have a special master draw the map. That was the case in both New York and Virginia, I believe, because it was just such a hotly contested concept. So that obviously that's a problem. But the ones that were done by citizen initiative seemed to work a lot better. So that is I thought was a real vote of confidence for citizen initiative. Next slide, or okay, well you are. And just about half of them, almost half of them passed. So this is something that can actually work. It's not an uncommonly used or a weird process, and voters like it. They like the ability to go in, and as long as it's not crazy like California with 50 things on the ballot, voters like the idea of being able to have a direct say in things that matter to them. And one of the big areas, next slide, is education funding, which of course has been a problem here. We all know about the difficulty of getting adequate funding for the public schools. But a number of states had initiatives in the most recent election that really addressed that directly. I think whether California, in fact, they approved a bond measure, and that's not a typo, for $10 billion for the schools, and others of them, required, tightened up the requirements to be sure there was enough funding for the public schools. Next slide. So it's very important to have safeguards, though, within the citizen initiative design, so that because people can come up with some pretty strange ideas, and you don't want to make it too easy, but you also don't want to make it so hard that nobody can ever use it. So there are a number, obviously, with so many states having it, there are a lot of good models there, and we tried to come up with a position that really reflected those concerns. That you want something that protects representative and deliberative democracy. You don't want to make it so easy, or have like ways of working around things such that it would undermine the voice of the voters, when what we really want to do is strengthen the voice of the voters. You have to have enough detail so that it's known what the requirements are and people can follow them and it's clear, but you don't want to have so much detail that it runs the risk of becoming unworkable and having too many requirements and so forth. I want to address all three of the steps of making a proposal and collecting signatures, and then how it's resolved on the ballot. Next slide. What we had a study team, and some of the folks here were on it, and we looked at all of the studies that had been done by leagues around the country in developing their own either positions or actually working for citizen initiative. As we felt that provided quite a bit of variety, and we had a lot of good discussions, we were able to formulate. We finally decided actually to go with Alabama's position, which was highly detailed, but not so detailed that it would drive you completely crazy. And it had a good balance between the requirements and the protections we felt, of the three parts of the process of how you develop a proposal and how you go about signature collection and what the requirements are there, and then the campaign for passage and vote. Okay, so next slide. Yeah, thank you. So we're recommending a system that requires that the initiative includes strong safeguards. As I say, you want this to be something which can be used for a wide range of things, but at the same time, is not so complicated that it becomes very difficult to make it work, or so loose that things are going on the ballot that don't really have much support. It needs to be, I'm going to read the safeguards because I think they're very important. It needs to be clear to the voter what it is they're voting on. What's going to happen if they vote yes? What's going to happen if they vote no? And it needs to have, safeguards, safeguards against confusing text, where it seems like you're supporting something, but actually you're opposing it. That can happen. So you have to have safeguards that protect that. You want to prohibit suppression of the minority. You want people to be able to find out about it and be able to vote on it and feel that they have had the opportunity to understand what the initiative is about. You want to limit each initiative to a single subject, so that you're not reading something that's, it's got pages and pages of things to go through. And some of the states, by the way, in particular, Maine does a really good job, and Massachusetts as well, of producing a voter guide that's specific to the initiatives. So people really can read that without having to go through a lot of legal language. You want to limit each initiative to a single subject, not have that to be too complicated. And of course, you want to protect all of our constitutional rights. You don't want people to be agreeing to something which is going to undermine. That's the exact opposite of what we want to do, is undermine voters' rights. And you want to have a clear indication of who's behind this. It's not just Citizens for Good Government or Citizens for Fairness or something. Like, who are the organizations? Where's the money? Where does the money come from? How much money was put into this, and so forth. That needs to be clear as part of the process. And to prohibit refiling of a failed initiative for 2 years. So you don't have the same thing coming up over and over again, and voters just becoming discouraged or annoyed with that. So next slide. So the LWV position requires a reasonable time for collection of signatures, because you don't want to drag it out forever and ever so people sign something 5 years ago and then it's going on the ballot and they've forgotten about it or maybe changed their minds. And the signatures have to be gathered only from registered voters across the state. This is fairly common, and different states have different systems as to how they specify that. Some are pretty vague, some are very specific. Actually, that actually led to one of the states losing their citizen initiative because they had it by congressional district and they lost a congressional district. So this is Mississippi, it comes as no surprise. Their court said that the fact that they no longer had as many districts as they used to have meant that the whole process was invalid. So that was it for Mississippi, and they still have not corrected that. So usually the number of signatures you need is based on how many people voted in the last gubernatorial election. That's very common and very straightforward. And you need maybe a higher minimum for a constitutional amendment than for a regular law, because there's obviously, if you're going to amend the Constitution, you really want to be sure that you've got strong voter support. As I say, they have to be validated by the electoral authorities before anything goes on the ballot. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so one more. Is it going ahead? Yeah, there we go, thanks. So we want to also require an impartial analysis of the proposal. Does this really make sense? It'd probably by the School of Government or another comparable institution that has good knowledge of how the state works and so forth, because you don't want to inadvertently interfere with something which is not what you're trying to do. We want to take into consideration how this will affect existing levels of service. Is this going to make things better for citizens, or is it going to be putting barriers in the way that are going to make it more difficult to deliver the services that voters want? Because you want to improve things, not make them worse. They should only appear on general election ballots. They should not appear on primary ballots or whatever. You want something that is a statewide general election so that there's the maximum opportunity for voters to weigh in on this without being confused. And you want to require, as I mentioned, a higher majority for constitutional amendments as opposed to other procedures, other elements. And also, there's the opportunity for the legislature to enact the initiative unchanged afterwards, so it can be speeded up a little bit if they've met the signature requirements and so forth, and the approval on the ballot, so that you don't have to necessarily have a public vote on the measure. However, if the legislature wants to change it, then the original version and the legislatively fiddled with version have to go on the ballot for the voters to choose between them. And I think this is just about, I think this is maybe, because this is the ask, yes. I was like, I have one more here, but it's not on my thing. This is, I think, an opportunity to deal with a lot of challenges that the state faces in a way that really engages the voters. And to me, this is something which is very reflective of what the league does. I mean, I joined the league, you may have noticed the date of 2017, so you may imagine this was right after the 2016 election. And it was, so this was really, it's really important, I think, to engage people in this process broadly so that people are comfortable with it, so that we can use it while at the same time protecting against some of the potential ways that things can go wrong. So what we're trying to do is form teams around the state. We have a statewide team that we put together to do we studied all of the reports that had been issued by leagues around the country, including, in some cases, unfortunately, the one we really like, the Alabama one, they can't find the study. It's very discouraging. They've lost it. And it was only it was only like 2000, huh?
Stolen.
Possibly. Yeah, I think the person that did it moved out of the state or something. I'm not sure, but we tried to find this person even, we couldn't find her. But we wanted to have, this actually was proposed twice in the legislature. There was an effort early in the 1900s when there was the reform movements across the country, La Follette in Minnesota and so forth, Wisconsin, and then there was it was a former Speaker of the House actually who wanted to have citizen initiative and other reforms and arranged for a special session over the summer. And they worked really hard, and the one they worked on initially and for the longest period of time was citizen initiative. And it was a decent proposal. But it was never brought forward. And he was so disappointed that he actually moved out of the state and moved to California. So we want to get teams together because we really want to engage a lot of voters. We're going to have to, this is a new idea for some people and not for other people who come from states where they already have it or who've read about it. But we really want to get people to be arguing for this and supporting it. And I mean, they also may have other things that they want to see than the ones that we've developed in our position. And we have to be ready to respond to what the voters want. So we have to, the more people we can get involved within the league. And I think we can also, there seems to be quite a bit of interest in this. So I think, being optimistic, I think we'll be able to attract some new members specifically because this is an option and the legislature is really, I don't think this is going to be a partisan remark, is really demonstrating why we might need such a thing at the present time. I think this is there's no one else working on this, as far as I know, in the state. There are some experts in the different law departments and so forth, there's no one else working on this except the league at the present time. So it's a real opportunity to show the league's commitment to the voice of the voters as being definitive in our decision-making process, and to the ability to reform and improve our government by adopting new procedures. And so I really would hope that some of you, I know some of you have already expressed some interest, which is great, have maybe been involved as well. We have some people who were involved in our teams along the way. So this is, but this is really an opportunity for all of us to get involved in coming up with a mechanism that will enable us to move things forward that have not, are just not moving forward, but that have strong support from the voters. But in order to do that, of course, we have to actually get this procedure through the legislature. And in an ideal world, which may not be a very practical view, but in an ideal world, we'd like to have this, before we get to the next census, so that we can, really begin to advance things and be ready for the next redistricting, which will happen right after the census data comes down, about a year after the census is completed. So I think that's all I have. And I'd be very happy to answer questions. Or people want to comment that they think this is a good idea, I think it's a bad idea, they're still confused. Yeah, please.
I think it's a great idea, but how are you ever going to get this to be accepted?
Well, I think that the key to acceptance is broad voter support. We found, for example, that over the time that we were working on the last round of redistricting, that the position of the voters moved toward when they were polled, that more and more people wanted an independent commission and felt that gerrymandering was bad. But these are polls that were conducted, by the regular public policy polling and the other companies that do polling here. And so I think that is the case, with this as well. there's certainly, I'm not going to say it's without drawbacks. There's no such thing as a public policy procedure that doesn't have disadvantages as well as advantages. But I think this is one where, that has a kind of natural appeal to the voters, that they get to have a direct say, that they're not just voting for the legislature that they've been voting for the past 20 years, that they're not really happy with, but they can't do anything about it. But instead they can say, okay, I really want to see school funding, or whatever it is, so that they can really feel that they're having a direct involvement in government. And I think that's appealing to voters. So if we can get the word out to them.
So, I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Just to follow up, so what has to happen in order for this to take place?
Well, I mean, this is a constitutional amendment, so that means it would have to be, drafted and by a legislator and put, forward to the legislature and pass, and then it would go to the voters on the ballot, ironically. But yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, yes, the voters want it, but how are you ever going to get the legislature to agree to it when it's not in their best interest?
Well, I mean, it's gonna take. I mean, other states have done this with far fewer tools than we have available now. I mean, these were mostly passed right around 1900 in the heights of the progressive era, when the South was doing Jim Crow. So that's why we don't have, it here. It was not really, it's not really all about voter engagement, shall we say? In fact, yeah, I mean. But other states have done it. Like I said, more than half of the states have this. So it is, and it's something that I think we can do it if we have enough people educated about it, pushing for it, organized for it, and so forth. And I see 3 hands plus you, so I'm not sure the order. I'll take your question.
Let Julia take the mic. Let Julia take the mic.
Okay.
My question is, how do you keep the people engaged if the legislature is going to just ignore what they're trying to, put on the ballot? Like, how do you keep them engaged, keep them positive, want to continue to work this and try to, get things passed if they're just going to do whatever they want to do?
Well, this is always. I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Sorry, Ben. Well, this is always a challenge, but I do think that if they are hearing from their own voters, if they're hearing from us, they'll ignore us. But if they're hearing from their own voters in their districts, then I think there's much more likelihood that they would adopt it. And this almost half of the states have this, and in all cases it was adopted long before the tools that are available to us, were around. This was mostly at the end of the end of the previous century. So that's really. Many of the things that we advocate for, are difficult to get. But this is a tool that, if we can get it, it will also make it easier to get some of those things adopted. So that kind of gives it an additional payoff, I think, if we can get them to do it. But the secret is educating the voters and getting them to express to their legislators that they want it.
Wouldn't that be done by signatures?
The question is, wouldn't that be
Yeah.
done by?
By-
I'm trying to
yeah, go
get
ahead.
back here so we can you repeat the question?
So, what I'm saying is, I think what they're asking is how you're gonna move the legislature. So you'd have to do the same thing, is collect signatures. You'd have to do your own CI that's saying you want this ability to do CI as a constitutional amendment and collect signatures, which would require, the percentage that you need. I think it's the basic line to do, is what I think they're asking, right? Because the signatures of your constituents, that's what they're gonna look at.
Yeah, and they want to see a lot of signatures. That people have tried, collecting signatures and going to them, they really want to see strong support. But I do believe that we could get pretty much across the board support from, from conservative voters, liberal voters and people that are in the middle, because this is something that can be used to accomplish such a wide range of reforms. It's a tool rather than just a single, narrow reform. But we'll have to see.
Over here, question?
Yeah, so I see where there would be broad support for a citizen initiative. And yes, we could get lots and lots of signatures. I'm not optimistic myself that that's going to make a difference in our legislature, just in our current history. So what lessons have we learned from other states in getting this onto the ballot through the legislature? And also it seems like beyond signatures, there needs to be some one-on-one conversations or League of Women Voters or other groups going and meeting with legislatures face to face. So what beyond signatures? I hate to say it, but I'm just not very optimistic right now in our current climate that signatures are going to move them.
Well, I mean, it's very important that they be signatures from.
Move you back over to the camera. Because we're
Sorry,
zooming.
trying to be responsive here. So it's very important, that they see signatures from their voters. They're not going to be convinced at all if it's voters from around the state or whatever. But I think if it is their voters, and if we also have done enough voter education so that they feel that is legitimate. Then I think they're more likely to respond. If we just go as the league, frankly, I don't think that they're going to respond very favorably. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But if they hear from their voters, because they, even if they're in very gerrymandered districts, they still have to have some responsiveness. I think you were next, I think.
Just following up on that question, is there a component of your draft approach to this that addresses the issue of engaging the legislators? Because it seems to me, agreeing with the previous questioner, that unless you get some buy-in early from sitting legislators, you won't get any more of a hearing than the representative carrying 12,000 public comments yesterday to
Right.
the redistricting vote.
Right.
Yeah, well, one of the differences between this and redistricting per se is that there are most likely things, because I mean the legislators are not unanimous about what they want to see, obviously. So I mean, I think there's some things where legislators would say, "Oh, this is my chance to get what I've wanted to get for several years," So I think it's possible, to, if they can see that their constituents support it, and that can be also by postcarding or whatever as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be by collecting petitions, since there is not currently a procedure at the state level where a petition actually means anything. But I think if they see that their voters want it, then I think that may move them. I can't promise that, though. I have to confess.
Okay, we've got time for 2 more questions.
Yeah, I want you. I think.
Okay, I've been in a state where they tried to do this, and seems to me that you have to be able to answer these questions.
Okay, they can have to be short though, because otherwise.
They are.
Okay, good. No, I welcome them. It's not that.
Are voters smart enough to understand how a complicated state works?
I think voters are fairly smart, particularly as a group. I'm sure there are dumb voters as well as smart voters, but that's the way it is with people.
That will be a question that comes up.
Will they do something? You mean, will they do something that? How would the smart? I'm not quite sure how the smartness or dumbness fits into it. But
Well, leave it to the legislator. We know how
Right.
to do it. Another question: you can't trust the vote count.
Well,
Thank you, President Trump, telling us we can't trust the vote.
Well, but I think we know that here, in fact, you can trust the vote count. That's just propaganda, frankly, as we know.
All of these are.
But But I mean, when you
These
have,
will be on TV.
if it's on the ballot and the ballots have been counted according to the usual procedures, I think most people trust those outcomes. It would have to be on a statewide election. We can't do it county by county and different. It has to be statewide and getting a majority.
This is the last question that I've heard. Who's going to verify the signatures?
This is one of, I mean, in most states, it's the Secretary of State's office. And I actually had a conversation with Elaine Marshall, because her office doesn't do what most of the secretaries of state do. Unfortunately, the only thing that springs to mind, other than creating a completely separate organization, is to do it, through the North Carolina State Board of Elections, to have the counties verify their each county by county or whatever, and then to have the state verify. I don't know there could. I'm not a lawyer, and there certainly could be other procedures that would work. But it has to be someplace that has some expertise and has some familiarity, with these topics. And of course, when the NCSB verifies signatures and that kind of thing, they do that county by county. The county boards actually do the work. The state board doesn't do the work, which would be unworkable.
Okay. Last one. Who did? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we take?
I'm open. But
Then take first, I don't care.
No, go ahead, Marlene. Let's go.
Beyond taking the presentation to leagues as you're doing, does the state league have a strategic plan for voter education on this issue? Because it seems to me that to engage voters, a lot of them don't know what ballot measures or citizen initiative is. Is there a plan to engage, educate voters? I think it comes down to voter education first.
No. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The board has asked, since this is a new position, that we start by educating league members around the state, and that sort of serves two purposes. First, hopefully some of you would want to get involved, and then therefore we'd have more people running around talking to local groups and so forth about talking to your neighbors and friends, for that matter, colleagues, relatives, to get to build up support for this. But yeah, it's definitely, we will need to build. I'll always remember when I just after I joined the league, there was an annual convention, and the national president came down, and she said that if you want to make something happen, you have to have a coalition. So it's not just having the support of league members, although that's obviously very important. And since we're, at this point, the only ones working on this, it's very important that we have our colleagues, also interested in it and supporting it. But ultimately, we're going to need a broad coalition of organizations from around the state. I think it will be relatively easy to get the sort of left-leaning groups, but it is very important that we have a broader representation, because the ones, the legislatures, I know this is a shock, is controlled by the Republicans at the present time. So they're going to want to see that they wouldn't even consider it if they didn't see good support from their own voters.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Don't go on there.
Oh, okay.
Have we ever backed away from a hard fight? I don't think so. And yeah, it's going to be tough. And yeah, it might be a long road, but isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth it, folks? So first, first we got Norma all involved, and she got things going. And then we were so fortunate to get Dr. Bremer to come down and do this presentation for us. So I'm going to turn this over to Norma for just a second here.
We just want to thank you. We thank all of our speakers, but I think especially today, because this is really a challenge for all of us. We have some work to do, as you can tell, and we just have this
thank you.
token
Very
present
much.
for you. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I put this down without making too much noise.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Joanne, for doing that, because it's one of those things I
Just give this back to you.
Thank you very much.